today's Convex Conversation with me, broadcaster Helen Fospero, it's a privilege to bring you the poignant story of a brave young Afghan woman living in exile in London who refuses to remain silent. When the Taliban ruled Afghanistan in the 90s, Zahra Joy was forced to disguise herself as a boy just to go to school. After the US-led invasion 25 years ago, her world transformed. Education, opportunity and freedom flourished, and Zahra dared to dream of a bright future. She became a news journalist, and in 2020 founded Rukhshana Media, her own agency dedicated to investigating stories of Afghan women. In 2021, the Taliban regained control of Afghanistan, and women were once again brutally erased from public life. In those chaotic first days, Zahra was airlifted out of Kabul and her homeland to safety in London. Zahra is a 34-year-old leading human rights journalist and has won numerous prestigious accolades for her articles and work. She's a former Time magazine Woman of the Year, was named in the BBC's 100 Women of 2022, was CNN's Champion for Change, and writes for The Guardian. Zahra has just published an impactful memoir, The Vanishing Girl of Kabul, written with renowned journalist Amie Ferris-Rotman. It's Zahra's powerful story of survival, growing up as a female in Afghanistan, and it gives a terrifying insight into the realities of gender-based oppression which continue across the world today. Zahra, it's really wonderful to meet you. Thank you for joining us here on the Convex Conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Helen. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
You've been living a relatively settled life in London, making the best of things for the last few years, evacuated to safety with some of your younger siblings and your little niece who's now 5. But what is it like for you, Zahra, living in exile away from your homeland?
Well, life is relatively happy for me, being here in London in a safe place with my family, with my parents and little niece. And I have the chance to amplify the voice of Afghan women and sharing their stories. But obviously, it is very sad when you are far away from your homeland, from your home, from where you grew up, and from a place that you had a lot of memories, relatives, and so many friends. So that's a combination of sadness, sorrow, and also a sense of hope for me to be here in this place at the moment.
I think the quote you use in the book, you say you're safe in a country while your soul burns. The other thing is, apart from missing friends and family and the culture and where you grew up, of course, you know that life in Afghanistan remains unbearably difficult for many women. So that's difficult as well when you're at the heart of some of those stories. So I suppose you're living here in safety. Now you've got your parents with you, but that's taken 3.5 years of not really knowing whether you're going to see them again and whether they'd be safe. You've only been reunited since November last year. But is that difficult too, that you put yourself at the heart of what's going on there, so you're very aware that women in Afghanistan are still suffering?
My life is completely changed after the Taliban retook Afghanistan. And for many reasons, I have been changed completely in a different person, I think, from the place where I lived, from the way that I worked inside my country, from the very close family that I had before the fall of Kabul. And obviously, the situation and the environment that we have experienced in Kabul, where women were free, they had the chance to go to school, to university, to sports, to do whatever they want and to wear whatever they wanted. But after the fall of Kabul, my life has completely changed. It is 5 years now, unfortunately, that women have been deprived from the most basic and fundamental human rights. And they have been deprived from going to school, even to go to the park freely and get fresh air. And also being a woman from Afghanistan, a country that is the worst place in the world to be a woman, is so heartbroken. My life at the moment is 100% is not the life that I had 5 years ago.
Tell me about your memoir. It's here with me, The Vanishing Girl of Kabul. Why did you want to write it, Zahra? What inspired you to put pen to paper and share your own story?
The Vanishing Girl of Kabul was one of my hopes. I wrote this book in a very difficult and challenging circumstance. I was navigating with a lot of depression, a lot of frustration and pain and hope all together. And obviously it's my memoir, but I feel like it's beyond a memoir. It's beyond my personal life. I wrote, by the way, this book with the help of my friend, Amie Ferris-Rotman. And this book brings a lot of stories together, from the first role of the Taliban, what happened to women. And then we had a short break from that horrible situation that we were navigating in 1990s. And also we mentioned the investigative journalism that I have done and I'm still doing with my colleagues, mostly brave female journalists, that they are based in Afghanistan. They are working anonymously. They are taking a huge risk to bring information to the world that already forgetting about Afghanistan and particularly its women.
It's interesting, on the front cover of the book, you've got a quote from somebody I know you've met, Malala Yousafzai, and Malala says, "A memoir that doubles as a warning. It is much more than your personal story. You tell what's happening in Afghanistan, but the frightening thing is once you go down that rabbit hole of realizing what's happening with gender-based oppression, you soon realize that it's happening all over the place, isn't it?"
I think what is going on in Afghanistan, many human rights defenders, including myself, and I believe Malala Yousafzai, we believe that it is gender apartheid. The Taliban established the system of gender apartheid. What is happening under Taliban regime in Afghanistan, I think is very different from the other norms of discrimination against women in other parts of the world. For instance, in Afghanistan, I think it's the only country in the world that girls are not allowed to get education beyond the 6th grade. So in this book, yes, we discussed a lot about the gender discrimination, the gender segregation that's going on under Taliban regime. And during this almost 5 years, Taliban issued more than 100 decrees and edicts directly targeting women freedom, women rights, women existing even as a human being. And also the Taliban behavior with women, it's so horrendous. When I had the chance to speak with women that they have been present by the Taliban and they shared their experience in the Taliban prison, and it is just awful. In my organization, Rukhshana Media, with a collaboration with the Guardian newspaper, for the first time ever, I think we received a video which is a testimony for how the Taliban are using the sexual assault as a form of torture against women. So all of this coming together forced me to write this book, The Vanishing Girl of Kabul.
And tell me the story behind the title. There's always a lot of thought goes in, Zahra, to a title. To you, what does The Vanishing Girl of Kabul mean?
The Vanishing Girl of Kabul, that girl could be myself. I have been arrested 5 years ago. I struggled a lot in the first role of the Taliban to just have access to education. I dressed up as a boy. I went to school. I studied alongside of my uncles, and I completely changed my identity as a girl. And later on, when we had a short break for almost 20 years, millions of girls, including myself, we were free. We went to school, we get education. And simply, after 20 years of the hard work and everything, after the fall of Kabul to the Taliban, everything is vanished, including Afghanistan daughters. And one of them was myself. Of course, I am not able to walk around Kabul city anymore. I am not able to work as a journalist, as a woman in Afghanistan. And I don't have equal right as a woman to exist in this country anymore. And also it could be millions of girls that they are erased from school and they are waiting at their homes. And of course, Afghanistan is, I think it's a open prison for women and girls. And it is very easy for the Taliban and for male domination and patriarchal society to erase girls from the society and from the public life.
Just going back to when you were young and you disguised yourself as a boy to be able to go and have lessons and to go to school. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, but you lived as a Bakaposh? Is that right? Bachaposh.
Yeah.
That's a girl who poses as a boy. What was that like for you, and how did the male members of your family respond to that? For example, how supportive was your father that you were doing this because naturally you wanted to go to school and be educated?
I grew up during the Taliban's first rule in 1990s, when being a girl meant being denied the most basic rights. So with the support of my family, particularly my parents and 3 of my uncles, I attended school dressed up as a boy. In many ways, I became a self-made boy, I think. When I am now looking back, I realized that it was never just about going to school. It was about perceiving my dignity and defining my right to exist as a human being. And also, I didn't fully understand at that time, but that experience, I think, shaped the course of my life. And also the importance of education for girls particularly, and that how it makes difference. So I believe that education really changed my life. And when I am looking back from that little Zahra that was able to use a trick to go to school and didn't give up, I feel like I was so lucky. I mean, there are very few number of girls that they had this opportunity to go to school. I feel I was one of the luckiest girl in my family and my village, and among the number of other girls that they still navigating with their gender and their equal rights as human being.
And how dangerous was that? What would have happened if your true identity had been discovered?
It was the Taliban red line. I crossed that red line, and there was a lot of punishment for this kind of action that I did it. As a child, I never understood. And when I am seeing that the Taliban behavior towards women now, there is always a punishment exist for this kind of act and this kind of bravery. So my family, I think they sacrificed a lot for my decision, and I'm thankful for them that they supported me despite many challenges. And I am always grateful for having a very supportive father.
Well, it says it in the front page of your book. You've dedicated the book to your mom and your very supportive father. And I think today you still realize that value of education and the power that it can give young women, because I think you're working on a project with Cambridge University now to help women in Afghanistan have lessons online.
Yes, I do. I am very hardworking at the moment, actually, because sometimes I feel like most of work that I have done has been not driven simply by a passion or by enjoyment, but it has been driven by a sense of purpose. So in 2024, when I received this wonderful news to be a senior member of Hughes Hall College in Cambridge, one of the very famous and historical place for women in England.
And the author Virginia Woolf.
Yes, she was one of my favorite writers. I was there actually yesterday to support the Afghan cricket team women there. They played there. And it is a completely different world for me. And I am trying my best to use my capacity to help women and girls in Afghanistan in any way that I can. So yes, there is a very important projects going on in Cambridge University that they are trying to support women's education in Afghanistan. And I'm very proud to be part of this organization.
Oh my goodness, you've had so much to do over the last few years. You're writing your investigative journalism, you're managing your journalists who are very brave and have to write under pseudonyms, presumably to protect their safety, looking after your young family, including your little niece, Elaha, who was only about 18 months when you left. There's so much you've done, Zahra, and so much I want to talk to you about. But let's just do the contrast, if we can, with how life changed for the better after the US and the Allies invaded. Did you dare to dream and dare to hope that this could be the new Afghanistan and that you could flourish in the new regime?
When the Taliban first role fall, there was new doors opened for us, particularly for women. And my generation, we were child when the Western invaded in Afghanistan. It was completely a different experience for us from our parents. We learned a lot. We practiced democracy. We hoped, the most important thing. And we fought with so many obstacles, barriers. My generation, including myself, we started our fight for our rights from a very safe place, from our homes. We fought against patriarchy. We fought against so many traditional norms that they wanted to block our way. It was full of hope. The young generation, particularly, even my parents. My mom, she never had the chance to go to school before, but during the 20 years of golden era for Afghanistan, she was very determined to go to a local illiterate course to learn. Now she can write her name, she can write her children's name on the paper. And it all was full of hope and desire for women and girls in Afghanistan. And it was, I believe, this 20 years for girls and women as a golden era, golden life. We used that so much, and I think we changed a lot. But unfortunately, we couldn't protect it. This is very heartbreaking for me, that we had a lot of achievement and we worked very hard, but at the end, no one could stand for that and no one could protect it. And we let it to the Taliban hand, and they destroyed our country, our life, our achievement, and so many hard working that we did during these 20 years.
And of course, one of the key things you did during that 20 years is you became a journalist, a news journalist, which is a profession that you loved being, didn't you, in that golden era and being able to report on the news?
Yes, I really wanted to be like my father. This was one of my hope when I was a child. And I studied law. But honestly, in 2011, when I moved from my village to the city in Kabul, I met many young women in the first time from different parts of Afghanistan. And I realized that my classmate and I shared so many common experience and so much pain, and at the same time, so much hope among us. And then a friend of mine, she introduced me to her office in a local news agency. I went there and I was very welcomed by this men colleague there actually. And then I started to learn how to work as a journalist. Before, I never had the idea that I will one day work as a journalist. And then finally, I founded this news agency for women and girls in Afghanistan. And I believe journalism became my way of giving a voice to women whose stories no one was listened to.
And then America's longest ever war ended in failure. The Taliban walked into Kabul on August the 15th, 2021, with no resistance. Tell us where you were, Zahra, and how you heard that news.
That day was one of the darkest moments of my life when I heard the Taliban entered Kabul. Before, everybody was talking that Kabul will protect. The Taliban will not retake the whole country, and then we will save Kabul for peace negotiation. And the day that the Taliban entered Kabul, the first thing they did, they opened the prison's doors to the prisoners. And most of them were the Taliban members. And the day when the Taliban retook, I think the first thing that happened from the first step, women just completely disappeared from the street. I was one of them. I was in my office in Kabul at the morning, but in the evening, I found myself desperately looking for a positive news. It was not coming. And I struggled with so many ideas. What should we do? Shall we give this chance to the Taliban and its supporters to take everything from us? Or we should stand for our rights? But unfortunately, at the end, we couldn't stand for our values, for our rights, for our country, and we left everything behind. A few months before that, we just started a new collaboration with the Guardian newspaper in the UK. And it was an extraordinary opportunity for Afghan local female journalists for the first time to tell their story to the international media, to the international audience. It was a horrible day that day. It was a long day. It was a very hot day. The people were fleeing from their office, from the streets to their houses. I was shocked. I saw women taking their children from the schools, running from the Taliban soldiers. It was unbelievable, honestly.
Even in those first few hours, from reading what you've put in the memoir, it was really abundantly clear that this wasn't, I don't know, do they call themselves Taliban 2.0, or to the rest of the world they were trying to reinvent themselves. But you say that public images of women were defaced. Right from the word go, you knew, didn't you, Zahra, that this was not good news and that you were returning to those oppressive days of the 90s where women just didn't really exist.
Well, absolutely. From the beginning that the Taliban entered Kabul, they started to remove women pictures from the street. They started to remove women that had beauty salons. It was very obvious, at least for women of Afghanistan, that Taliban never changed. They have the same ideology, they have the same perspective about women and girls. But unfortunately, the day that the United States and the Taliban signed this agreement in Doha in 2019, all of Afghan women feel that it is a great betrayal. Because on that conversation, on that argument between United States and the Taliban, no one was involved, particularly the women representative, civil society, and even Afghan government at that time. So what happened in Afghanistan, I feel like it's absolutely betrayal by the West and, of course, Afghan government and also the Taliban, that they pretend they changed. To the West, they lied, they promised so much, but in practice, nothing has been changed. They have the same rules. In this time, it's much worse because they have access to technology. They have these tools to spread the fear towards people of Afghanistan.
Do you feel terribly let down, Zahra, by the West? And is there a sense that probably the world isn't listening because the atrocities and the deep brutality that you talk about that women are going through at the minute, and the rape of children as young as 9 and things like that, the violence, that nobody's really listening anymore, and it goes on, but nobody really cares?
Unfortunately, it is something very deeply concerned for myself and for many others. Human rights, women's rights is not an internal issue. It is absolutely a shared universe values, and fighting these values are a shared responsibility. At the moment, yes, Afghanistan has been marginalized. It has been isolated from the world, and sometimes it feels like Afghanistan is not part of the world anymore. And also, so many organizations, including UN, are operating in Afghanistan. And the Taliban are not allowing the UN women employees to go to their office to work there, local women employees. So I feel like so many things are going wrong, particularly about Afghanistan. It's a very concerning, and what's going on now, I think it's a deep human rights crisis.
It's heartbreaking at points to read your book and realize some of what's going on is very troubling. And I know it troubles you too. And you suffer nightmares sometimes from your writings. You're exposed to videos of things that go on and people's individual stories. And it haunts you too, doesn't it? Even writing about all of these things.
Well, absolutely. At some point, writing really helped me to navigate with this all challenges going on. Believe me, Helen, there are so many stories, news that because of fact-checking issues and principles in media, I am not able to publish it. Yesterday, I was talking with a man from one of the very far province of Afghanistan that I never thought people will reach out from that remote and rural area to share the pain that they are navigating and suffering. He mentioned that his niece is 17 years and the Taliban judge forced her to get married with him. And then this teenage girl, she had only two options. One, get married with this 70 years old man or go to prison. That girl said, I'm going to prison. Now she's 2 years in the prison. And also the Taliban primary courts in Badghis province issued her 5 years prison. And these all news are coming every day. And there is very less attention about Afghanistan as it did crisis.
It's very important that your voice is heard. Amie, who co-authored your book, was instrumental in getting you out. You were airlifted out of your homeland with some of your siblings who are younger than you, your little niece, who was only really a baby at the time, in a British transport plane with about 300 others packed in the back. What was that farewell like before you got to the airport, before you took off in the plane? What was the farewell like with Mum and Dad?
It was just heartbroken. It is just unbelievable moment. I thought it's not real, honestly, at the beginning, until I make the decision to leave my parents behind. And I went to Kabul airport in a very chaotic situation. There were hundreds and thousands of people, women, children, men. And it was one of the difficult moments of my life. I never thought that when I will be able to see my parents again. And the day that we left Kabul, I felt like the whole my soul was burning and the whole my longing, my feeling and everything I carry in my body to safety. And I think I was not alone. Millions of Afghans had the same situation. We really didn't know where we are going, what is our next steps, what should we do with our family safety, the whole idea to just flee from this country.
And you had with you your 14-year-old brother. So at the age of 29, you really became mum and dad to your younger siblings. You going into a world you didn't know what to expect here in the UK. You didn't know what kindness there might be, where you would be living, how you'd survive. I can't imagine the enormity of it and the heartbreak of you taking off and seeing your homeland, not really even knowing, Zahra, whether you would actually see your parents again. At one point, your father was arrested and taken by the Taliban to a container, wasn't he? Like a sea container. I don't think they kept him very long, thankfully. But you really were heading off into the distance. The family pulled apart with no idea really whether you'd even see them again. So I can't imagine how it felt. Were you greeted with some kindness here? I think you lived in a hotel room at the beginning. Was the UK kind? Did you feel that people welcomed you and understood your circumstances and why you'd had to flee?
Well, Helen, it was unbelievable situation for me, of course. I never thought that in the same time that I fleeing my country, leaving everything behind, I will take more responsibility. My parents' responsibilities were in my shoulder. My professional responsibility were there. And myself as a woman that I sacrificed so much in Afghanistan. And I thought it is the most horrible situation that I hope never, ever people experience in their life. But yes, in the UK, we received so much support, honestly. From the day that we left our country, the British soldiers were so kind with us. They supported us. And when we landed here in a completely different world, I received so much support here. And I'm really thankful, of course, from the UK government to give us the safety. To my friends, I make a lot of friends here now. And in the hotel, when we were there, and the hotel staff were so kind. And it was a combination of pain, hope. And that's why I think the Vanishing Girl of Kabul shaped in that structure. Pain, struggle, suppression, and also, in the other hand, hope, support, and also try to keep the hope alive. This is one of the important things that I learned during these 5 years.
And something that helped you keep your hope alive and was very special to you and remains special to you was the River Thames, wasn't it? You found some calm and some solace by the river.
Thames River was my real refuge. It was a real shelter for me. I never thought that I will find a specific place around this crowded area in central London that it gives me some hope and give me some calm and peace. I was frustrated the day that I found this place. I had this Virginia Woolf book on my hand, and I really wanted to find a place, and I couldn't the first day. But the next day I went there. I found a corner around the Thames River. That crowd, that water, that boats, all of them gave me some peace and quiet. Sometimes when I talked with my sisters that I found this place and it is so peaceful and calm, and they said, "Oh, Zahra, how you can imagine that among this crowd you find peace and quiet?" And I said, honestly, it is somewhere that really gave me this peace and calm and quiet space that I can think and reflect and talk with myself and work and be hopeful.
I think that your quiet time with Virginia Woolf and your own thoughts was important because not only were you running Rukhshana Media, you moved to a council flat in North London, small, but somewhere that you could create a home environment. You've also got, obviously, your younger siblings, not all of whom spoke English, and you needed to get some education. There was a lot going on. Tell me a bit about Rukhshana Media and what the idea is behind it.
So Rukhshana Media came out from my almost a decade experience working in the media industry in Afghanistan. I didn't go to university to study journalism. I just started with a local news agency to learn how the basic roles, how to work as a journalist, how to do interviews. But media and journalism and freedom of speech was one of the biggest achievements in Afghanistan during these 20 years. But unfortunately, it was not easy to be a female journalist in Afghanistan. Of course, Afghanistan was one of the dangerous countries in the world for journalists and also for female journalists with discrimination, with unequal situation. So during this almost a decade, I worked in different media outlets in Afghanistan, but most of the time, yes, I was a journalist, but a female journalist. I always feel that I had to work harder than anyone else to prove that I deserve to be there. Sometimes I were the only female journalist in the newsroom, and I was not involved with the decision making. In 2020, when I had the chance to leave other media outlets and take a break a little bit, I thought I can't be away from this environment. I came with this idea to found a news outlets only for female journalists, and I founded the slang Women for Women. And I never thought that there will be a lot of challenge again. Particularly financial issues was one of the most important issue for somebody to work in the media and to run an organization by herself. So when I arrived for finding a meaningful name for this, I searched a lot. One thing that came, it was the name of women that lost their lives in the patriarchy society. It was Rukhshana. Rukhshana was 19 years old. She fled from a forced marriage in Ghor province in central Afghanistan in 2015. And she was arrested by the Taliban. She is stoned to death by the Taliban in front of hundreds and human rights organizations, in front of so many other countries in Afghanistan. And now Rukhshana represents the thousands of Afghan women who became victims of violence, and the women that their voice remained unheard after their deaths. And also, I think Rukhshana was a kind of responsibility for me. I felt that I have to create this space, and named our news agency Rukhshana to just give a respect to her suffering, and a kind of memorable sign that how Afghan women are losing their life simply because of their gender, because they can't follow their desire and passion.
That's such a horrific story to think somebody would be stoned to death and for not wanting to be in a forced marriage. And of course, you dedicate the stories that you tell to the stories of women, which makes you unique. Women are strong. I get the impression that Afghan women are strong. What's going on now in Afghanistan behind the scenes, Zahra, in terms of a resistance movement? Do women try and meet in secret and have friendships, do book clubs, try and learn? Is there an underground movement of strong, passionate women?
Helen, let me begin with this word. Rukhshana gives me this opportunity to understand better women of Afghanistan. Yes, they are very strong. Women of Afghanistan, they are so strong. They have this courage. And I always respect their bravery. There are a lot of local resilience. In Afghanistan now, I can say we have millions of local feminists, which is, I think, one of the weakness for the Taliban regime. So when I was in Kabul, I had less chance to hear more stories, for example, from women in Kandahar, the Taliban leader capital now. And also it was less opportunity for me to hear women's voice from Helmand, rural area in Afghanistan. But with Rukhshana, miles away from my country, I had this chance to listen to women. So sometimes inside the country, despite many pressure and restrictions the Taliban put on women's life, there are so much secret activities. Women are fighting every day. There are mothers that selling their jewelry to send their daughters to a secret schools. There are women begging for survival of their daughters. Most of the women, they protect their daughters, but unfortunately, some of the fathers, they try to sell their daughters. This is the difference.
It's so hard to take it all in, really, Zahra.
Absolutely. It is so hard to believe what is going on in this country. And also, there are so many other women. Still, they are protesting. They are reclaiming their rights. One of the inspiration stories that I really wanted to share with you. So there are a group of women in a very remote area. I don't want to name the province where it is. So they have a small group. Every week they are protesting indoors against the Taliban, writing against the Taliban, reclaiming their rights. And they don't have access to internet. So the lady that she's leading this group, She's recording that with the smartphone and walking to the mountain for 1.5 hours to get a signal. And then she's sending that material to me and asking to publish it through Rukhshana Media. So this is kind of resilience when I am seeing. It gives me hope. It gives me the strength to continue my work and to rise and amplify the voice of Afghan women.
And something I didn't really consider is that the Taliban's systemic oppression has a knock-on effect for men and boys as well, doesn't it? Because if females aren't allowed to teach, for example, or be midwives or do the things that women have traditionally done, that does have a knock-on for the males too, doesn't it? Particularly boys.
Well, absolutely. The Taliban ruling Afghanistan is a dangerous way for the whole country and beyond, honestly. Now, imagine during these 5 years, while they stopped girls from going to school, they stopped so many other modern knowledge for women and men inside the country. The Taliban established 21,000 religious madrasas, and all of this is a sign for the next generation of Afghanistan that they will be radicalized by the Taliban ideology. So these religion schools are running by the Taliban, and they have to study the Taliban curriculum according to the Taliban beliefs and according to the Taliban ideology. So what Taliban are doing is a dangerous sign for the whole country.
35 years after Nelson Mandela was freed from prison, you had the opportunity to go to South Africa with a group of Afghan women's rights activists funded by Malala's charity to try to learn from those who'd managed in a different way, but to overthrow their oppressors. How did that trip inspire you, and has it helped with the big learnings to be had there?
It was one of the remarkable journey that I ever had in my life. It was eye-striking. It is a beautiful country, South Africa. Of course, we are a very far distance from South Africa to Afghanistan. But when I was there last year, I feel like I was walking in Kabul street, in the sense that the struggle that the women and men in South Africa and women in Afghanistan. So the other things that really moved me was the system of apartheid. And when I went there, I felt this is a land that gives us these lessons to not give up, to fight for freedom. And I really inspired by conversation that I had with women in South Africa, with judges, former judges, students, university professors. And so many of them were so determined, and all of them can understand what is our pain. So when I went there, I saw shared pain and common understanding of each other, particularly women. And when I visit a museum there, I saw beautiful wedding dresses that because of the apartheid, that girl, when she wanted to marry a white man, she was arrested with her husband. And in the museum, they put that dress as a sign of resilience, that how people are fighting and sacrificing for their rights and for humanity.
Your book starts with Akila and Zahra Joy, your mum and dad. And I think it's appropriate to end our podcast by talking a little bit about them. Last November, your family was reunited. You were so excited to see your mum and dad after, I think it was more than 3 years apart of uncertainty and not knowing what was going to happen, that you couldn't wait in your flat in North London, and you all headed off to Heathrow to greet them from Istanbul. What was it like when they walked through those doors?
On the day that we received the news that finally Home Office gave them a chance to reunite with us, I was in a trip actually in United States with the group of my fellow participants in the conference, and we were there, and I was with a friend of mine in his car. Then my sister called me, Zahra, I have wonderful news. I said, what? And she said, we received the Home Office letter that my parents are allowed to come here. I thought I was reborn on that day. This is big news. And then I came back to London, and we were waiting for, I think, 1 or 2 months to see them in London. And that day, everything was off. From my side, I said, today I'm not working for Rukhshana Media. I'm not working for Women of Afghanistan. I'm not working for any other else. I just spending time with my parents and my siblings, and we are celebrating this moment. And Helen, there are some times in our life that you never thought it will happen. But when it's happening, it's a big, big surprise. And you really want to celebrate it. So that day was the most happiest day of my life, and for my siblings, of course, and also for my parents. We were cleaning, we were preparing foods, we went to the airport to see them. We really enjoyed that day.
You said in your book that it was the first night of unbroken sleep when they slept in your North London flat. I suppose suddenly an awful lot of worry and fear had been lifted off your shoulders. Mum's been cooking, I think, some delicious dishes from home. I can almost imagine the smells. Does she create a little bit of your homeland in the flat when she starts cooking for everybody?
So my mom, she has a unique personality. She is very calm. She is very peaceful, and everyone in my family, we loved her so much. When she started to talk with us and cook something for us, we all thought and felt that we are back in Kabul in our house. Because every morning when I wake up, the first thing that I smelled, it was the fresh bread smell that my mom was baking for us. And when I woke up the next morning, then my mom was in the kitchen, she was preparing breakfast. I was fascinated by the passion and the love of a mom, how she is sacrificing for her children, and how she is trying her best to make a life better for us. So that moment I felt, no matter how it was difficult for us, how it was heartbroken for us to be away from our parents, at the end, we are together. We have our house from Kabul here in London.
You're learning to swim. You play football with other refugees. Mum and Dad are studying English. It seems as happy as it can possibly be, given the fact you've been ripped from your own home. But do you still harbour any dreams, Zahra, of one day being able to return and have a life back in Afghanistan together?
Well, absolutely. This is my fight. This is the reason of my fight, to be able to go back to Afghanistan one day and operating Rukhshana from Kabul and bring positive news and positive image about women and girls in Afghanistan particularly. It is my hope that we return the freedom for girls and women in Afghanistan. And I am really fighting for that day. And I am looking forward the day that women can do what I'm doing here.
Keep hoping, Zahra. Keep doing what you're doing. And I really hope that day comes for you. It's been an honour to meet you. I'm glad that the UK has made you welcome and that you've had some kindness here, and that in very difficult circumstances you've managed to start from scratch really and create a new life here. I wish you and your family well. And the book is absolutely amazing, written with Amie Ferris-Rotman, a fellow journalist who I know is a great friend of yours. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for this podcast, and thank you for raising our voice.
It's been a pleasure. You've been listening to award-winning human rights journalist Zahra Joy. Zahra's memoir, The Vanishing Girl of Kabul, is out now and is an emotional, heartbreaking at times, eye-opening read, really inspirational. And do look out for her articles in The Guardian, which she does through her own media group, Rukhshana Media. Download and subscribe to our series. It's at convex.podbean.com Or you can search The Convex Conversation on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to yours.